I'm Julie.
Hello, I'm Lucy's mum.
And these are my grandparents, Rose and Ron.
Hey!
And these are my grandparents, Jaye and Baz.
Hello! We are very excited to have you on the show.
Yes, we're buzzing, aren't we?
We're buzzing, yeah. We're going to be talking about your childhood memories during wartime. Now, we know you were really young then, and you're still quite young now. How old were you when the war started, and where were you born?
I lived on Mile Cross Lane at the boundary.
I think you were about 10 when the war started, is that right, Grandma?
It sounds about right.
Yeah. Baz, what about you?
I lived at Cossey, which is on the west side of Norwich, and I was 8 when the war started.
I was 2 years old when the war started, so I can't give you much information about that, although I was there. I was born at Heacham, and the nearest town is King's Lynn, Norfolk.
And what about you, Dad? How old were you when the war started, and where were you born?
In Fring.
Fring! Shout out to Fring! It's on the map. And Fring is a beautiful little village, very near the Queen's estate at Sandringham.
Yes, very posh.
Very posh. We're ever so posh, aren't we?
Yes.
Very, yes, very.
Great. So, family life, brothers and sisters?
You did?
Yeah, I had a sister and a brother.
So you were the youngest, were you, Jaye?
Yeah.
At the time the war started, I just had one sister. The brother arrived later.
I've got 3 brothers and 2 sisters. I'm the eldest of the brood.
My sister is no longer with us.
No, you're the youngest of 8, aren't you?
Youngest of 8.
Gosh, how did your parents cope? I find it hard just with 2. I understand that your older brother, Bertie, was posted to Burma and served in the jungles, which was a very scary place to be.
He was found in the jungle.
He was found in the jungle, and what happened to him?
Shrapnel in the
He
neck.
had a shrapnel wound to the neck.
Yeah.
Gosh, he's like you, Dad. He's a very handsome chap.
Yeah, he is, isn't he?
I bet the girls would have gone out with him.
Oh, yes. He was the loveliest man. He really was. But he wouldn't talk about his war experiences, would he, Dad?
Oh, no. No.
I don't think he could. A lot of men didn't in those days.
I remember on the back of that photograph that he sent to you and your mum, he mentioned On the Road to Mandalay, which was a song back in wartime, and he was actually on the road to Mandalay.
We had a letter all about it. He lost his friend.
Must have been so awful for a parent, in those days when you've got your children going off to war. I mean, must be the worst possible thing.
Especially when you haven't heard from him for a long
can't
time.
imagine. But it must have been absolutely amazing when you heard that he was okay.
Oh, yeah. My mother was very pleased.
Wonderful.
His name was Fred. He was my mother's brother. He was called up in the RAF. He went in air crew and he joined Bomber Command. He was shot down on his 3rd mission.
Oh, no.
He parachuted down and he was 3.5 years in a prisoner of war camp.
What country was he in?
Germany. I won't say he enjoyed his time there, but at least he didn't come to any harm.
No, he was humanely treated. That's good to know, yeah.
He flew in a plane that wasn't known all that much, a plane called Halifax. It was a similar sort of genre to Lancaster, but they were good bombers, and he was just unlucky. I think they used to do 15 or 20 raids in a row, and if you got through that 20 raids, you were extremely lucky.
And what did your parents do during the war? What did your fathers do?
My dad was exempt from war because he was a farmer and grew crops to feed the people.
He used to work on the land.
But he was in the Home Guard, and I can remember him going off to the town hall to have their little meetings and things.
There's an amazing programme that was on British television for years called Dad's Army. Oh, guys, if you haven't seen that, you should. It's one of the funniest sitcoms on telly, and it's all about these guys in the Home Guard.
Oh, I didn't realise your dads were doing that.
He wasn't that scatty, though.
My father was builder.
Well, he's a clever guy, obviously builder, and he built his own shelter.
He built this, well, that's huge, very good. And the neighbours used to come in there, and we used to sort of play in there whilst the raids were on.
And also he was a builder and an undertaker, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you telling us some funny stories. Your dad used to hide in the coffin from your mum and then pop up at her. So he sounds like he had a brilliant sense of humour.
Yes, he did. He had so many friends because he was always laughing.
He died about 1941.
Yeah, he was quite ill.
Is that why he didn't get signed up?
Yeah.
What about you, Baz?
My dad, before the war, was on the Parks and Gardens. He couldn't go in the forces because he was very deaf. They finished up sending him away to Coventry to work in a munitions factory.
I heard conditions in the munitions factories were horrible and so dangerous.
He hated it. He absolutely hated it. He'd been working on Parks and Gardens all his life, and to go and work in a factory, it just absolutely killed him. I hated it, and my mother hated it. We all just wanted to get back home again.
Well, yeah, because you were away from family and friends. That must have been awful.
He found a way around things all the time, and he managed to get back as a maintenance man on the American bases. We left Coventry about 3 days before the big Blitz.
That is
Someone's there looking after you.
In Britain, we couldn't get a lot of things during the war that the Americans had. Did he manage to wangle some goodies?
Any gum chum?
Yeah.
He took me out there one Saturday morning, and of course the Americans absolutely loved British kids. They knew we didn't have much in the way of things like tinned fruit and that sort of thing, and they filled me up with it all morning. You know. I threw it all up in the lorry on the way back.
I remember once when we were very small, my mum and dad came home from King's Lynn to the market, and mum was so happy she'd bought some bananas. She said, "I've got you all a banana, it's such a treat." We all got excited and queued up and waited for our banana. Took the peel off, took the skin off. Oh, I thought, I don't like this, and I never have done to this day. And I was so upset because Mum had gone without, but I didn't tell her what I'd done. I'd buried it.
You buried it! Oh!
This chap, he used to have a horse and cart, and he used to take all these bread rolls around, and we'd get one and eat it up the tree.
Oh! Do you remember being hungry?
We were never hungry. You were never hungry. Well, we never felt hungry, but we did eat a lot of things that we wouldn't eat nowadays.
Like what?
Tripe.
Oh!
I don't even know what that is.
Tell Lucy what tripe is.
Tripe is the intestines cleaned, of course, the intestines of cows and pigs. The big lumps of tripe were the lungs.
Oh my gosh.
And it was all washed and cleaned. You wouldn't recognise it for what it was, and you ate it with vinegar normally.
With vinegar?
Yeah.
Oh.
Was that kind of because they didn't want any part of like the meat to go to waste?
Well, I suppose we ate things that we wouldn't normally eat simply because we didn't want to see waste. Yes. Yeah.
Mm. Did any of your family get stuff off the black market?
I don't think so. No. I don't think so. No.
Too honest.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew the story of the Blitzes in Norwich. There were two really big Blitzes.
We were in one of our bedrooms at home upstairs, all of a sudden there was this terrible noise and clattering and banging and people shouting and crying. And when we looked out of the window, we could see this barn was on fire. And so we went downstairs and there was this poor lady in one of the rows of houses that she got trapped upstairs. But they said if she hadn't gone upstairs, she would have lost her legs. She was all right, she recovered, but she was so lucky because the force of it, the force of the bomb could have taken her legs off. It was very unreal.
We had a garden about 100 yards long. And we got a 500-pound high explosive bomb dropped at the top of our garden. I really can't remember being frightened, but I suppose I must have been. When the raid was over, we went into the house and saw the state the house was in. All the windows had been broken, the ceilings were down, soot had come down the chimney. It was in an absolutely frightful mess. It didn't really register with me. It must have registered terribly with my parents. They must have been in an awful state. But it didn't really register with me. I just went off to bed and went back to sleep.
Also, when we went out at night, if we had torchlights, we were told not to wave them about because that would attract the enemy. We had to hold the torches down so they just showed the road in front of you. And of course the houses had to be blackouts and everything.
In our village we had the searchlight. We just got dark and road and then up the line halfway to Sedgeford. Yeah, that was bright too.
Yeah.
But that was only for the war, really.
What I can remember is after the first Blitz, my father giving me some money and saying, go and get on the bus and see if all our relatives were okay. And there were actually buses running, would you believe? They were having to go round the craters in the road and this sort of thing. And
Goodness, nothing stops the buses.
Nothing stops the buses, exactly.
And were all your family members okay?
Several of them had some near misses, but nobody got hurt.
Mum and Dad didn't really talk to us about the war. They sort of acted as though it hadn't happened. It was really weird. But when the sirens went off, we didn't go down to Anderson's shelter like most people. We hid in the downstairs cupboards. I remember once being pushed under the table because it came on so quickly.
Why didn't you have an Anderson shelter?
My mum and dad didn't seem to want to know anything about the war. They didn't really acknowledge
I didn't
it.
want to worry you, that's what I did.
Of course,
No, probably if they thought they ignored it, it would go away. And yeah, and they obviously, Dad, you're right. I guess they didn't want to worry you. You know, they wanted to make your lives as normal as possible.
The siren went off one night and I flew out of bed and flew as far as the top of the stairs and fell all the rest of the way.
Oh my God.
You couldn't get there quick enough.
That was my war injury.
Oh my goodness me.
Between that and the vomiting, you had quite a rough time, didn't you?
We were in there. In those days we had a lodger, a chap called Billy. And Billy said, I've had enough of us sitting out here waiting for the all clear. I'm going into bed. So he goes off, and shortly after he goes off, an almighty thunderstorm broke out. He came hurtling out and dived into the shelter and landed flat on his face. Once the two main blitzes were over, we decided we'd had enough of that, and my mother took myself and my young sister off to live in Brandon because we had relatives out at Brandon. I can't think how we all slept because they lived in a tiny little cottage, just 2 up, 2 down. That's really all it was. My grandmother lived there. She lived with her brother, who was my great uncle, and my mother turned up with me and my sister. And where did we all sleep? For the life of me, I've got no idea where we slept. But when they found us a bed there, and we stayed there for about 3 months until the main lot of the blitzes were over.
So I presume your dad had to stay in Cossey in Norwich.
He stayed in Cossey and carried on working. We got out of it. It was really getting horrendous, the situation in Norwich.
one chap, I think he was a sergeant or something. My mother used to do his work. He used to bring the washing.
That's great, yeah, because I'm supposed things like that, you know, when you're in war, you've got to have your uniform washed and, you know, all those sort of things have got to still be done. What were school days like for you two? What was the discipline like? What were your friends like? What did you do?
Pretty much like they would today, really.
Yeah.
Did you ever get the cane?
Ever get what?
Cane.
Frequently.
I didn't. I was a good boy.
Oh, we believe that, don't we? No. Did you get your knuckles wrapped with a ruler?
She did. I did.
Did you, Grandma?
How do you know I did?
Well, we know you were a naughty girl, Grandma, because you always have been. Tell us about Miss Hume.
This teacher in primary school, she ran this quite big class. We had a boy there called Alan, and he used to come and join our group sometimes and play with us. And he used to play up, and she couldn't do anything with him. She screeched and screamed at him, but it didn't do any good. And so she started throwing things at him to calm him down. And I was sitting there at my desk one day, just minding my own business, and this rubber like that became whizzing past my ear. So every time that she lifted her hand up, I was under the table.
And I went to a school in some distance away. I had to cycle about 4 or 5 miles to school every day.
That's a long way to cycle.
Well, I was there 5 years and I never missed a day. One day I cycled through snow that was about 6 inches deep to get there.
Wow.
He was a goody.
He was. I bet if it snowed, you'd not turn up, Jaye. Forget that. Dad, I remember that you had to catch a bus to your school because your village school had closed down and become a social club.
I used to turn around in the square where I lived. But,
yeah, with the bus, yeah?
Yeah, but that was always conking out.
Was it conking out? Oh, but it was a real old wreck, was it?
Yeah.
They weren't very good years ago.
So I guess if it conked out, you guys had to walk, did you?
No, we didn't go. I forget now, but
I bet you were really
You were
pleased.
hoping for it to conk out. You have a day off.
I think I enjoyed school days, really. Looking back on them, there were times when I didn't like it too much, but I think most of the time at school I enjoyed. Did you?
Yeah, that was okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
You were telling me also that you had a really nice, kind teacher, and she invited you back to hers for some tea. Couldn't do it now, could you?
No.
oh, the teacher did,
Yeah.
when I was at school.
Yeah, she took you back for tea, which was so sweet.
Gosh,
And,
no one minded that she was inviting children back to her home for tea. I suppose it's a different
It's
different
those
time, wasn't
days.
it? Yeah.
I'm curious about what toys you had and what sort of games you played back in the day. Presumably no iPads.
Oh, well, if I was outside, you do that hopscotch thing.
I loved hopscotch.
I used to do very well for toys because I'd got an older sister and brother and that, and they used to sort of get them for us, I suppose.
They like to spoil you.
Yeah.
So what toys and games did you play, Baz?
He couldn't afford it.
You know, I honestly can't remember.
Did you play football?
I played football a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of the good things about moving to school in the city, because the playing fields were just fantastic. When I walked past the school and came upon the playing fields, I thought I died and gone to heaven.
There used to be a field at the top, and people used to chuck all the rubbish. Well, they used to dump their old bikes with no tires on them, and we used to go up and make everything work. I tried to ride this old bike, with no tires on. One day I went far from my house and I fell off the bike.
Children out there, do not ride any old bike you find on a rubbish tip without tyres.
Yeah. I remember, Grandma, you telling me about how you and your sister Doreen would dress up and put on little shows.
Yeah, we used to do that.
Your father's shelter that he built as a stage, didn't you?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's a much better use for it.
I think so, yeah. I can appreciate that.
I was in a group called the League of Light. There was this really old lady who was in charge, and we used to have outdoor raffles to get money for these children, unprivileged children who didn't have anything in their life. And we used to have these little sales and that, or anything we didn't want, any toys or any little bits of food we could get for them. And then we used to meet in this League of Light. I really enjoyed that.
Did you have any evacuees from London or elsewhere in your school?
We had a couple of evacuees from London come and live with us in Cossey. I don't know at what stage of the war that was. That was a lady with 2 kids, and I didn't get on very well with the 2 kids.
I remember you telling me, Mum, that you helped my granddad, your dad, out on his farm.
When I was old enough, I drove the tractor, and one tractor we had was so long, I was laying down like this to manoeuvre the tractor. I could only see the sky. When I was even younger, the men had been out in the harvest fields all day, and we went out, and Dad put Jill and I on top of the cart horse, because everything was done with cart horses in those days. So we were put on there, and the back of the horse was so wide, and we were sitting like this with our legs right out like this because we were so small. Anyway, we trotted down this little lane, and we came to a gate, and I was shouting out, "Daddy, Daddy, this horse is going to jump over the fence." And he said, "Oh, my dear," he said, "the poor thing hasn't got any stamina to walk, let alone jump over gates."
Do you remember the war ending?
Yes.
I can imagine all the people coming home and the celebrations and the relief that it was all over. What did you do? Were there celebrations? Did you go into the city?
Yeah.
I don't know if you did you?
Yeah.
I can remember being along in the city on the walk. I can remember actually one silly idiot who tried to climb a lamp standard. He climbed all the way up this lamp standard, and he got right to the top and he fell. There were so many crowds underneath him that he fell just on other people, and just got up and walked away. If we'd all stood back so he hit the ground, he might not have survived the war.
Yeah.
I just wonder, like, how you think having all of that going on in your childhood impacted you as you grew up.
Well, I just felt like normal too. We're all in the same boat.
You didn't know nothing different, though. I mean,
we didn't have a lot, but we didn't need a lot.
Having lived through one war, you realise what war is all about, and you just don't want any more wars.
I didn't realise at the time what a lucky family we all were, because we had plenty to eat, we had a nice house, we just sailed through it all.